Hello and welcome to WhipChat. My name is Christian, and today I am joined by Christopher Wright and Robin. Welcome, guys, to the show.
Yes.
A quick introduction, just to let everybody know a little bit about you. Thank you for sharing some of this with me earlier. But well, first of all, the point is to bring this diverse community together. The whip-making community, unfortunately, doesn't have large groups of people anymore these days, and what I want to do is get to know you guys and have the world get to know you as well, basically. And I'm very impressed that you're the owner and operator of X1 Whips, and your background includes time in the Air Force and jobs with business analytics and solutions architecting, which I don't really know what that means. You can tell me about that in a minute. You have been making whips for almost 2 years and have already established yourself as a true craftsman, an expert craftsman, actually, I would say. That you have taken the prestigious 3rd place wins at the last 2 WhipCons, which is extremely impressive. And you're probably the only full-time whip maker in Canada. And you received the new business starter grant for your city, which congratulations again. And to use your words, you have a wild client list. Robin, also equally impressive. You are a professional dog trainer, which I don't know how you do that. As well as the creative director and the people person behind X1 Whips. So thank you guys for joining and welcome to the show. And just everyone else out in the world, say hello.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Yeah.
Wonderful couple of entrepreneurs here. I really find it interesting that, I mean, the first time I really looked at your stuff in detail was at WhipCon, and I feel bad about it. I mean, you took 3rd place last year, and it's so impressive. I was able to see some of the rollout of your stuff, and I mean, not to mention the fact that you got 3rd place at the whip making. That was really impressive. So what is it about the whips and whip making? I mean, what for both of you, really? I mean, how did you get into this? What sort of childhood memories do you have on this? How did you get into this?
Yeah. I think, a lot of people, like when I talk to other whip makers about how they got started, a lot of people kind of talk about, oh, I really loved Indiana Jones when I was young, or I watched this. I remember watching all those movies growing up, and I really loved them. But it was actually it was during COVID. Like a lot of people, I was looking for something to do, kind of bored at home. And it was a YouTube recommendation for Nick's performance hybrids when he first put them out.
Oh, yeah.
And so I found that, and I was like, I've got some paracord like lying around from the old days. Like I'll give this a try, see what I can do. And I've always liked working with my hands. Both my grandfathers were carpenters. I've always just been like a tinkerer by nature, and I fell in love with it. I made the first one. I didn't even finish the first one. I was so excited with what I learned making that first one that I don't even think the heel knots on it. I've got it here somewhere. And I just dove into the second one. And it kind of clicked. It was really nice. And I was able to start thinking it through, because it's not just, follow the directions and go. There was so many elements to it. There's so many things to try and design. And I just kind of got hooked. So,
yeah. I mean, you said that you just dove into the second one. Can you explore that? What was that feeling like? What was it you were?
It was very exciting. Something I found out about myself recently is that I got diagnosed with ADHD. It's something that I didn't know much about until a couple of years back when I got the diagnosis. And I've always been the kind of person to just get very excited by the learning process of anything. Put anything in front of me, and I have so much fun learning how to do it. So when I made that first one, just even looking at my plaiting, watching some of Nick's other videos about how to do, different knots, how to do this, it was just this new world of so many things to try. It was a new skill. And it was at a time where I really needed something to keep me busy. I needed something to keep my mind active, to keep my hands working. And I think I got ambitious. I think the second whip I made, I tried jumping into 275 almost right away. I just thought it would be really cool. Like, it was so cool to just, use 12 strands. What happens when I can use more?
Right. I see
So
Robin nodding an awful lot here through this.
Robin has to
Feel like
very
there's a story
patiently put
behind
up
the
with
story.
my stream of hobbies and my different, I don't think she's had a living room for the last 6 months. It's turned into kind of an impromptu workshop. So
I didn't
My
catch
wife.
them nodding so much.
My wife can empathize.
Yeah.
If I may,
Yeah,
Christian,
please.
it was interesting to see like when Chris talks about the ADHD diagnosis and what a lot of people go through when they have that diagnosis late in life is they have to kind of recalibrate and but he actually got really excited about understanding that more and when it came to picking up that second whip and diving right into trying a bajillion new things rather than trying to master the couple basic principles first, it was all about that dopamine. It was all about
Right.
that newness that's really exciting for him. And what's great about whips is that there's a lot of new all the time, and there isn't one set way to like. There isn't one like scripted rule way of doing certain things. Like you can play around with it and a lot of different things you can tweak to change the performance or look of a whip. So
different styles of whips too, different patterns.
So I'll be surprised if you ever run out of things to try.
Right. Yeah, that I can certainly relate to that. I have a similar diagnosis, and it's I have to keep my hobbies, to a manageable number, or I run out of room in the office.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we face that a lot. We face the running out of room problem quite a bit. So very excited for when we can actually get a little bit more space and kind of set up a shop that's not also the office, that's not also the living room, that's not also,
Right.
the kitchen to an extent where the waxer is, and there's a little bit of whips.
Oh, that face. The nice smell of paraffin come wafting through the house.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. You were talking about, never able to maybe find the end of even this hobby. So one of the things that you and I were talking about briefly at WhipCon was the fact that you do have a partnership that you have started up, or collaboration, or I don't know what the term is you're using, but with Justin Bretsky over at Canada Whips, and your new signature, the Justin signature, I don't know. Well, tell me about it. I'm saying it all wrong.
Yeah, no. I mean, Justin's kind of been a part of the journey right from day one. While I was working on that second whip, I was kind of sitting here being like, I wish there was somebody I could ask more questions to. Videos are great, but I wish there was somebody I could talk to and pick their brains. And if you search whips and Canada at all, the first thing you're going to come up with is Canada Whips and Justin. And I saw that he only lived about, what was he, a 2-hour drive away at the time before he moved?
Oh, wow.
So that was really exciting. So I actually, reached out to him. For anybody that knows Justin, you'll know he's probably one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Like his desire to just help anybody that reaches out is it's limitless. So he said, you know what, I'll introduce you to some people. I'll give you some advice, but if you ever get the chance to come by, come on up and visit. And we ended up, getting a few people together. And he was able to check my stuff and give me some feedback, and we've been really close friends ever since. We try and see each other at least once every month or 2 months to hang out, spend a weekend there. I'm not much of a whip cracker. I think like a lot of whip makers, we're really good at sitting down and working with our hands, but we're not very coordinated individuals. So he's been helping me with feedback pretty much right from the start. And he actually approached me a few months back and said, you know what, I really love what you're doing. I'd love to have something that was really just tailored to what I do with contact moves. And, at this point, I've already made him about 4 or 5 pairs of whips and really fine tuning with his style. And so we took on that project together, and it's been amazing. The feedback's been really great. It was so much fun getting to see people trying them all while we were in LA at WhipCon.
Yeah.
I think he's got a video that he's putting together now. He got some clips of a bunch of people trying them. So
Good. Yeah, I enjoyed it myself, and it definitely does not feel like anything else I've used. And I cracked a lot of whips at WhipCon and a lot of whips over the last my whole life. And just the feel of having more weight out in the thong, but not having it overly heavy, but somehow still balanced. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, that's been a big learning curve. I know when I entered my first whip at WhipCon, it was a little terrifying. It was 7 months after making my first one, and I figured, you know what, let's try it. Let's do this, right? So got there. I think it was the first hybrid Adam told me that was ever entered in a competition. Most people kind of have considered them a budget whip for so long, and I just really wanted to see what I could do. And the number one feedback I got from the judges, from Adam, from Johnny, was a little bit more weight further down. I was like, all right, okay. So I, went home, reworked the design, and I got the chance to make another pair of hybrids for Adam, and I got the same feedback. You know what? A little bit more weight. Let's go a little further down. So that's been, this back and forth conversation, and it was really thanks to that process of trial error. Adam was monumental in being able to give me that feedback of where to shift things, and just getting the weight further down has seemed to be the common consensus. So that's actually now worked into a lot of my designs, whether they're hybrids, stock whips, bull whips, is playing with the weight profile. It's really just adjusting those shapes and getting it to where it feels more natural. So less force that you have to put in.
Right. And let's see, I think you've got one of the Justin whips on one of your social medias here. We should bring that up here in just a minute.
Yeah. I think Instagram, I think both of them actually, there's a good shot of a couple of them.
I think the black and white one, right? Let me add that.
Yeah, I've got the black, white, and silver, and I think there's a picture of Justin's first pair. Yeah, there's that one. I think I'm trying to see where Justin's actual original pair is in one of those pictures too, the very first prototype.
Yeah. So this is on Instagram, X1 Whips. If you guys are watching this later, or if you're listening on audio, go to it and check it out. But the black and white pair, and yeah, there's so many beautiful ones here. Oh yeah, here's the red
heel, and I think
those are just beautiful.
Yeah,
and that's actually what's really cool. There is Justin actually, where he works. There's a graphic artist that he works with, and that's actually his signature that they took and they digitized, and then he found somebody local to engrave those in. So that's his actual signature. It's not a computer generated, which is a really cool touch.
That is cool. Well, awesome. I love that. That is super cool. What is it you're still working to develop? I mean, if felt like you've got these dialed in for Justin, for Adam, do you feel like that you have arrived here, or
not even close? And I kind of like that I'm not close, to be honest. And it's kind of that what we were talking about before, that chasing that new and that dopamine.
Right.
It's more a journey that I don't want to have a destination, is kind of my way of looking at it. Okay. There's always something new to learn. Right now, I'm currently working on doing some 275 bull whips, which are really cool. I'm starting to play with a little bit of whipmaker's cord, which has been a lot of fun. And I actually have just been starting to work with a little bit of leather. So nothing yet. Okay. I do have one that I made with Torrance Fisher at the end of last year's WhipCon. We hung out for a few days, made a snake whip together. So trying to take some of that, build it in, but trying to pace myself. The excitement's there. I kind of wish I had an extra 10 hours every day to just do experiments in addition to everything else. But the list of projects is long, and I hope it never shrinks. It's what keeps it fun and keeps me coming every day with I start every day with a smile. Every day is a new adventure. So
you're actively working on trying to master the juggling whips to.
Yeah, juggling whips is a big one. That one is one that I'm working on.
The weight balance with those is the tricky part.
Yeah, getting them to spin right. Yeah, and one of the mentalities that I like to take is that there's never one right answer. I think it was Thea Mojave Outlier. I saw a quote from her recently that said, a good whip is the one that you like. And I thought that was one of the best things I've ever seen, because I mean, I'm sure you see on the Facebook chats all the time, there's so much debate over what's right, what's wrong, and really it comes down to what's right for you. So rather than just perfect one thing and have that one thing, what I try and do is I look at it as, if I can learn enough technique, if I can master enough skill, then I can talk to any person and figure out, okay, this is what you're looking for, and then make that, rather than just have one set design that I keep going through over and over. So
I mean, once you get past the beginner mistakes, I guess, you can plait straight and so forth. Keep your tension even throughout the whip. So what? I mean, Robin, this could be for you as well. what about with the business side of things? How are you guys tackling that? How are you growing? What are you tackling right now? Because that's I think beyond once everybody kind of gets the feel for how to do the basic braiding, that's where a lot of these conversations go. And there was a lot of conversations I have with people out at WhipCon that are trying to figure that out. As you know, being a whip maker is not the path to become rich and famous. But
It's a pursuit of passion. That's for sure.
it is a passion project, certainly, and it can be a living. But how are you guys handling that and the struggles that go along with it?
Do you want to start with this one? I'd say you get to observe what it's been like.
Well, what's equally challenging and uniquely advantageous is that we're both trying to start our own businesses at the same time. So we both kind of are learning a lot of the ups and downs and ins and outs together as a team. So and really discovering our strengths and weaknesses. So he's very analytical. He's very mathematical, I would say, as well. Like he's very numbers oriented, and I'm very people oriented. So
Very creative.
I'm more the creative brain. So I helped him a lot when it came to getting the social media up and going, and his mom actually, who's also a very analytical brain. They're very similar. It's a little scary when they're in a room together, but also very impressive. She's been helping him a lot with getting like tracking. A lot of the inventory is what we're working on right now, like tracking the numbers coming and going. I think that's really tricky when it comes to something like paracord, where you're trying to track like the feet you have left on a spool and how much it takes to make this whip.
Yeah, when I started, I definitely did not really have a good grasp of what would be entailed in kind of just like you said, the business side. I think everybody starts because they want to make stuff, they want to craft, and then when you actually go for it being a business, you realize, well, there's money involved now, and there's tax, and there's inventory, and I can't just I'm running a little low, let's place an order. You have to kind of know where things are at and schedule. And it's been a learning curve. Most of what I've been doing since getting back from LA has actually just been updating more of the business side, trying to get the website going, which is really exciting. Trying to have just a streamlined way of taking orders so that it's not all Facebook conversations and Instagram messages and having to scroll back and remember what we talked about. And
there were some challenges with pricing as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a big one that a lot of whip makers ask about, and it's a conversation that always gives an answer of like, oh, it depends.
Right.
I know I
have to actually. I'm going to do this. Hang on.
Yeah.
So this picture I have from WhipCon. One of the things that I thought was you were the only people I think that had a price list right up front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With and it was great. It was very refreshing, I have to admit. And I mean, beautifully laid out and organized as well. But yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Right there.
Building this sort of thing is not a small thing. That's great.
Yeah. And I was very fortunate. Here in Canada, we have something called the Starter Company Plus program. So it's run by each city, but it's I think province wide. Yeah. And it's an opportunity, so anybody can apply. There's I think 10 weeks of just mentorship that starts you out, which is really nice. So they'll cover general topics. Of course, everybody does something a little different, so nothing too drilled down. And then at the end, there's a pitch competition, so everybody gets the opportunity to pitch. And then if you're selected, there's the grant that comes with that, and then some additional mentorship. And I think that was the first time outside of WhipCon where I embarrassed myself the first time when I stood up in front of people and had no idea what to say.
Oh no.
Was getting up and talking about this in front of people and not hiding in my workshop and just, being a contained little entity. So it's fun. And even doing this, I'm not a very big public speaker. I'm very much, that's why I like to call Robin my people person. She's the one that goes out and talks and mingles. And actually,
I'm the face.
Well, really funny story. And I'm sure anybody who goes to WhipCon faces this a lot, is that, celebrity syndrome. When I went to the first WhipCon, all these people, Adam Winrich, Nick Schrader, these were all people I've just, seen online, and they're these huge, icons within the community. And I remember seeing Nick And I be the first one to admit I fangirled a little bit. I was sitting there and I was terrified to go up and say hi.
Yeah.
And Robin actually, she went and she grabbed him and brought him over and
It
said,
was Justin. It was Justin.
"Oh, was it Justin? It was Justin who did it. Justin grabbed him and went, Chris wants to meet you, but he's too scared to do it. So here he is." And
Oh, no.
He basically pulled like a How I Met Your Mother, like, have you met Chris? And then just took
and then
off.
left. So
That's awesome.
even being here is a lot, but it's a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity because it's fun to get to do this. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I keep forgetting we're recording even personally, but I'm just.
If I'm sorry, Christian, if I may bring it back
Please.
to the pricing point for a second.
Yeah.
What's been interesting is that we both kind of battled this feeling of like, oh, well, we're very new to the industry, so we don't want to overcharge, right? We haven't earned our place as people who are, well known and we're experts, and that people would be willing to pay that amount for. And like, it's the same with dog training. Like, I find that there's not really a set amount. There's a range, and and we both kind of had to tackle that research together to kind of look and compare to what everybody else is doing and think, okay, well, why are they pricing it that way? And to have to price not only for the particularly for you, to not only have to price for the materials but also for the time is interesting to think about what your time is worth.
The time, the overhead. As of December, this is now full-time. This is my main source of income. So
wow,
not looking at it from like, oh, what would be nice to have for this hobby craft, but what actually keeps the business running, what keeps rent being paid and the lights on. And it's a lot. But the imposter syndrome is the big battle. It's this never ending, how do I support my craft, and how do I value where I'm at? You know what I mean? And it is hard when you're new. It's been a back and forth struggle, but people have all been really amazing. A lot of great advice and feedback. So
even Nick was saying he struggles with the imposter syndrome sometimes,
which is crazy.
Yeah. So
which is crazy. Yeah.
yeah. He mentioned that to me as well, and I mean, I'm not very good at whip cracking or whip making, but yet half the people at WhipCon know who I am, and that was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So
when people come up to you and, oh, you're this, like it's you. You're
yeah,
like, it is, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I would like to jump back to you said you had to make an in-person pitch to the city.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Or maybe Robin can tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, Robin actually got to sit in, which was really cool. We didn't think that.
I recorded the whole thing.
No, she didn't. There is no evidence of anything that was said. It was.
I won't ask for the video, but how did that go? What did you say? Tell me a little bit. What were your high points? How did you feel? Did you throw up before? I mean,
I was very close. It felt so awkward. I think I was the last pitch.
Yes, you were.
Of the entire. There was 10 people pitching. I was the very last one. And it's a very small. I didn't know what to expect. When I went in, it was just this tiny little meeting room. 6 people sitting around. One person was an accountant. One was a social media manager. One was in marketing.
Yeah.
There was the actual, the coordinators of the program.
Legal.
There was a lawyer, which was very interesting. Some of the questions from the legal side, because anybody who's in the whip community always gets the, is it a weapon? Question.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Right. So that, a lot of that came up.
So what'd you say?
No, and it was really cool to get to explain, that the different sides. So it actually being a herding implement and being used for sound, and that, there is no contact with a whip. And I'm, when I get into something, I really like to study and to learn. And I dove into the history of whips. I read Whips and Whip Making. I read all these different books, went online. And even I had a misconception, I'll be perfectly honest, about, that they weren't really weapons. It's one of those Mandela effect things where that's the common conception, challenge you to go find any actual evidence, not modern movies where it's been adopted and taken in and all that, the Indiana Jones type stuff, but there's no real history to that. So it's kind of interesting, and being able to talk about that and explain it. It was cool to see people's faces and be like, oh, okay. Like I didn't I didn't think about this, or I didn't think about that. There is always the awkward, you start up and what do you do? And you say, oh, I'm a whip maker, and you get, everybody in the room gives you that funny look of you do what? And then, you have to start explaining and bringing stuff out. But no, it was really good. It was actually hard to not talk too much, which was very interesting for me.
Yeah,
It was a
because
very
you were
short time
limited
limit.
to 8 minutes.
I think 5 all in, and about 30 seconds of that was a video that I tried to show Justin's, what is whip cracking video that he put out last year.
Oh yeah.
To give a little context, right?
I think it was 10 minutes.
Was it?
I was thinking 10
It
minutes.
felt like 2. It felt like it went by just in a heartbeat. But it was really good. It was a lot of fun. Everybody was more curious than weirded out, which is what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
Good. That's awesome. Which I mean, obviously they selected you. That says a lot right there.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations! Wow.
Thank you. It helped a lot. It's all that nice stuff that you saw in that photo at WhipCon, the banners, that all came from the grant. So it was really nice to get that little leg up, that little boost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was definitely the most professional looking booth there. So congratulations, guys. I did want to dive a little bit more into the business side, and then maybe we could talk about some of your products. So we're coming up on the half-hour mark here.
Absolutely.
But so be respectful of your time, but we can certainly go as long as needed as well. Do you have any suggestions for other entrepreneurs? Maybe I don't know if you call it a hack or a pitfall to avoid, anything like that you would, as a whip maker.
So I guess I'll give 2 answers. One from the whip making side and one from just the business side of it.
Okay.
From the whip making side, take notes. Keep notes for everything, whether it's your designs, your builds, who you spoke to. If you don't take notes, it'll come back to haunt you every time. Every time I haven't taken a note, it's come back.
And keep those notes organized in one place.
Yes. And that's been big. Right now, I'm kind of going through the fun of just my bookkeeping. So I guess this, branched into the business side too. I didn't keep very good notes at the beginning. So now I'm playing the struggle game of trying to retroactively go back and look at transactions and, oh God, what was this for? It's a $200 thing in my bank statement that I don't remember what I did with it because it was a year and a half ago, right?
Right.
So I'd say keep notes is a big one. And I think from the business side, don't be afraid to ask for or accept help. I think that's really big. I think a lot of people face this. They go one of 2 directions. Either people do this, I'm the business owner, I've got to do everything on my own. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And asking for help is really important. Delegating the things that you're not good at. It's always good to learn them and to build them up, but to recognize to a certain extent, I'll never be a social media influencer. I won't. So I ask for help from people that I know are good at that to get advice or to, even just do a trade for lessons. I've definitely traded some people just for photography lessons, just so I can try and, take some better pictures and
oh, wow. Okay.
So
Yeah.
It's always good to ask for help because there's people who want to help. And I think, anytime somebody's asked me for help, I'm very pro sharing information. So I've, just filmed some quick videos, nothing professional quality. There's about half an hour of me rambling because I don't know how to be on the camera without nervously talking to fill the space. So for anybody that I have sent videos to, thank you so much for being patient with that.
I can relate. It's okay.
But yeah, I think everybody innately wants to help if they can tell that the desire is genuine. The one thing that I will add to that, and this is something that Adam, I think he mentioned in a conversation, it might be in one of his videos, and it's become the cornerstone of how I ask for help because I think it's really important to try first. I think a lot of people, like we live in this instant gratification generation of YouTube and Google, and we're so used to being able to get whatever we want right away. And whip making does not have a ton of resources that are out there. So when you don't have that instant answer, it's very tempting to just, hop online or message somebody and be like, how do I do X, Y, Z? And I think we lose out on the learning process. I was on the phone with Blake Gorey yesterday, talking about when he got started making whips, when it was, him or Paul Nolan, any of these people that were before really the YouTube and internet generation where they had to actually just try and learn and fail and learn and try. And it was just this cycle, and you can't replace that. You know what I mean? Right. So every time I ask a question now, I go in with, this is what I've tried. This is what I think the answer is. Am I missing something, or can you point me in the right direction?
Yeah.
And I think that shows a lot of respect to the person you're asking help from. You're not just, hey, you spent 10 years learning this. Can you give me the 30-second answer? Mm-hmm. It's more, I'm really trying to get this, but I value your experience. So can you maybe, let me know where I should be focusing, or am I on the right track, or something like that? And that's opened a lot of doors. It's helped me have a lot of conversations with people, and glean a lot of insights and knowledge that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So
yeah,
I love that. What about you, Robin? How do you feel that? I mean, also with your business as well. I mean, you're trying to start one also. Do you feel like a lot of this overlaps as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a big lesson that I've taken away from the past couple of years is one of my favorite expressions is try, fail, try again, fail better. And it's because and it's so easy to preach, it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to get it wrong, that's how you learn. And I am so guilty of being happy pitching that advice to a friend, but applying that same advice to myself is not as easy. Yeah. And it's not until you actually allow yourself, like if you go into something knowing I'm probably going to mess this up, I'm probably going to fail, and you accept that and accept that that's okay, and you do it, and you realize that it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be, that's a huge turning point, I think, for anybody, whether you're an entrepreneur or anything, or somebody trying to hone a craft or a skill. Like even with Justin, our first WhipCon, coming back to the point about being so starstruck, I had no idea who any of these people were. Like, I didn't know why Adam Windrich was so famous. I didn't know anything about Nick. I was just like, I'm just along for the ride.
She walked up to anybody with just the pure confidence of, I have no idea why you're important. So
seriously, I was just like I'd introduce myself and they'd be like, okay. Like it's like they were surprised I wasn't more, in awe of them. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. And anyway, what I was going to say about Justin is that I was so like, I'm never going to get this whip cracking thing. Like, it's not for me. And he's such a good teacher, though.
Oh, yes.
That I'd be like, oh, I'm going to hit myself. He's like, so hit yourself. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you're not going to learn if you don't mess it up. So like, toss it in the air, hit yourself in the face, whatever you got to do, just try it. And I'm like, okay. And it did take a few times of me like whacking my own head or my ear or whatever it is. And then him being like, try your arm this way, and it totally changing how the move panned out. And I think that applies to life. I think that just like you have to try and look at making a mistake or failing as something exciting instead of something bad. Touching on the mental health journey portion that we were discussing earlier. In therapy, I worked a lot through not treating the word mistake or the word failure as like swear words. Like they're a good thing, because you do it and a few things happen. You realize that you can survive it and it's not that scary. You realize where you went wrong and what you can change to do better next time. And you realize that it failing at something doesn't make you a failure. I think that's something that people don't know how to separate.
So big.
So
you mentioned therapy though. Was that a prior job that you were doing, or?
No, sorry, like me going to therapy.
Oh, you gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know we talked a little bit about ergonomics at WhipCon, and I feel like I would need to go to therapy if I did it full time like you're doing. That's really impressive. I think failing your body is another way that you have to be very careful with, and you understand listening to that.
Yeah.
Do you help Chris with that? How do you guys handle that sort of thing as well? I'm not to switch topics because that was an excellent point.
No,
that's okay. Yeah, no, it's interesting you mentioned ergonomics because I was actually talking to a massage therapist colleague earlier about because I'm about to start doing that part time as well.
You're getting recertified, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something we've chatted with Justin about a few times, is how a lot of whip crackers, I don't think have a good grasp on what good warm-up exercises are, or rehabilitative exercises are.
Whip makers too.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that helped a lot, because when I was starting to convert more to full time, I was making more whips. My hands hurt a lot, and I think a few people have talked about this pain that you get when you're working that much. I know Nick's talked about it before, and Robin's like, "Well, are you warming up?" And I was like,
I didn't
No,
know that was a thing for whip
Well,
making.
and that was my reaction too. I was like, well, "Tell me more. Like, what do you mean? Am I warming up? I'm not going out and doing something physical."
Yeah.
But
All right, so Robin, tell us what we need to be doing here.
Yeah.
Well, she's got had a whole routine for me, so I
I
do the stretches now, and it helps.
Yeah, well, he says he does the stretches.
I try and remember to do the stretches.
I did put together kind of a therapeutic exercise plan for him that involved, I think, like 5 different warm-up exercises and 5 different like recovery stretches after you're done working for the day.
Okay.
Sorry, don't mind the cat.
I'll add that to the guest list. Who is this?
This is Isis, named after the Egyptian goddess. Her sister's name is Cleopatra.
Yeah. She's 16, so she got the name before it became a little bit of a funny one. So
anyway, but yeah, so I think there's a YouTube video that I found that had interesting exercises that was actually for professional
gamers,
gamers,
pro gamers, esports.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that had a lot of similar implications to how you would use your hand muscles and forearm muscles in plaiting whips as well. It has a lot to do with how you position yourself too. I think whip makers who plait off the hook are going to have a lot easier of a time than those who do it off of ice seated, because when you plait off a hook standing, I think you can take the advantage of using your body weight rather than using all shoulder or all back or all grip strength. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've been Justin's been trying to get me to put together a more professional looking exercise plan that I could kind of send out to everybody at some point.
Allow me to add on.
Yeah, no, and anybody who's ever mentioned that too has been like, "Yes, please, absolutely, everything hurts." Like,
yeah.
So seriously, could you show me a couple things, or Chris, could you demonstrate for us? What are a couple of the stretches?
Yeah, no, I've got
I
through the hand ones.
Okay.
Really wants to be. There's a laptop, so and it's funny because I didn't think about a lot of this stuff until I started doing the stretches, and then I was like, oh, okay, this actually makes a lot of sense. So some of the ones have just been separating your fingers, so having your hands together and being able to do those individual finger separations.
Oh, like this.
Yeah, so being able to pull them apart, just to get the muscles stretching, right? Because you don't realize how many ways you move and contort your hands when you're pulling, right? So, like rolling for warm up, so being able to put your fingers together, get the dexterity to roll fingers back and forth in each direction.
Okay.
So it's different motions that like you don't do day to day, but suddenly when you're plaiting, you do them kind of all the time.
Right.
One of the other big ones has been shoulders. I've been notoriously bad for just having very, very tight shoulders. It's funny. It impacts the whip cracking and the whip making a lot. I don't have the mobility, so just even like door frame exercises. So being able to kind of get the door frame or the wall and to stretch out as soon as I can feel it right now. I know that I'm not
just leaning back, like putting
Exactly.
your elbow on the door.
You kind of want to line up your elbow with your shoulder, and it comes back like that, so you can stretch out the chest. Because if you think about it, if you're leaning forward like this, plaiting, everything is crunched, right? And you want to think about when you're warming up for whether it's whip making or cracking. Warm-ups should include dynamic movements. So, I think I showed Ian a couple of these, but like, doing arm rotations. There's a version of arm rotations where you're leaning forward and you allow gravity to kind of help it's you bend, you hinge at the waist, and it's actually an archery warm up that I learned. But it's same thing, you do arm circles, but leaning over, and that helps to kind of open up the joint space so that all the tendons and stuff like that aren't so compressed, so you don't get that clicking and stuff like that when you're trying to do
Right.
movements.
Okay. Yeah.
And when you crap whips like Ian, and you're just, you know, the amount of force
It's crazy.
is wild. I couldn't even imagine
Wow.
some of the stuff. Yeah.
And then, so you want to do dynamic stuff going, like warming up beforehand, and then afterwards to allow for healing and recovery, you want to do more static stretching where you're holding it for 15 to 30 seconds. So whether you're using a wall or your own hand, but doing that sort of extension stretch.
Similar like for carpal tunnel from keyboard work.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So you're going to get that stretch through the forearm, stretching the thumb as well, bringing it back so that you can get some of that stretch through there, because you have to do so much grip when you're plaiting, especially.
Yeah.
And
I think something that a lot of people they underestimate, and they, you know, you'll hear about it and you'll be like, oh yeah, some people I'm sure need that. I don't. Is any of the ergonomic stuff. Because I kind of do a combination of off the hook and on the vise, and so when I'm sitting, even I got just the Obis form, you know, the memory foam backrest for the chair, or an ergonomic mouse. I've got one of the curved mice that turns your hand to the side, and it feels like it's silly to have these things because, oh, how often do you use the mouse?
No.
How often are you sitting?
Right.
But it adds up. And when this is, and if you're a whip maker, your body is the most valuable tool that you have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a lot of manufacturing, it's, oh, what equipment do you have? What tools do you have? But really, as a whip maker, I mean, all my tools fit in a bag, right? It's the rest of it is me. So if I'm not looking after myself, if I'm not stretching, if I'm not doing those things, if I injure myself, that's my livelihood on pause until I'm back.
Yeah.
Right.
I think people don't think about that. And not even just the physical, like the ergonomics, but something that they brought up when I was in that mentorship for the program was insurance. You know what I mean? Like your hands are your tools, and you can actually, now when you start looking at the pricing, I'm not at the stage where I can afford it yet, but you can get insurance so that, you know, if you do get injured, you're covered. And that's huge, because if you're not making stuff, you're not selling stuff.
Yeah.
So really looking after yourself is so important. It's something that I'm working on. I know that there's more I can do. It's a process, because you have to untrain yourself from that. Oh, I'm fine. It's okay. I can tough it out. We all have this big bravado of, I'm going to be okay. It's, some people need that. I'm good. But get the stuff, like support yourself. It's the best possible thing you can do. So.
And if I could add one last thing, whether it's whip making or whip cracking, like what I've observed as sort of like an outsider, I guess. At least last year, I definitely was. Not anymore, but when I was watching these whip crackers like Ian, that just really giver, I'm like, oh man, in 5 years, your neck is just gonna stop moving. So a lot of it's like preventative, right? And to try to convince these young, a lot of them guys, to look after themselves is like pulling teeth. But it's so important, because, you know, if you tell them, like, you know, in another 5 years, your shoulder's not gonna want to move that way, you know, you gotta think about what happens when that day comes. Or you can prevent it by doing these things, you know, every day for 15 minutes. You know, you pick your poison.
Right.
And this, it's hearing this, because I've heard this speech a few times, and 100% correct. But I think one of the funniest times that you've done that, and then you got a nickname out of it, which is great. We were at the Great Lakes Flow Festival in Michigan. Justin and I went. Adam came for a day. Nick came with us. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool to have whips in a different context. Seeing them at a flow festival with all these different, you know, props, and getting the fire whips at night was really cool. But Robin, anytime we go anywhere, like I said, she's the people person. She's also the organizer a lot of the times. I'm kind of usually scattered, wanting to, you know, oh, this idea, I'm going to chase that. Robin really likes to keep everything grounded, which is amazing. But it was Adam, of all people, that ended up giving her the nickname Whip Mommy, because she was really the one looking after. Yeah, it's funny. She got it.
Nice. I love it.
But it was because, she looks after us. And I think, like she was saying, it's a lot of just, we're all young at heart. Like if you're playing with whips, you're young at heart. You know what I mean? You're a big child having a great time. So like what's more fun, right? So it's hard to sometimes think about that looking after yourself portion of it until it's too late. And so, it's really funny, but really you have, for a lot of people now, not just me, Justin, all these other people that we hang out with, I think you've had a huge influence on just that self-care side of it, just introducing that. So
yeah, I've my friends have always joked, especially my friends in college, have always joked that I was the mom of the group,
the mother hen,
because I'd see people just like, it's an injury waiting to happen, or no shit, you have a head. So sorry. no, duh, you have a headache. You haven't had any water in this many hours. Things like that that I just observe, right? And so
that's a hydrate. I think I've seen this in multiple whip conversations now. When you start that overlay, and you lock yourself in for that 6 hours of plaiting that you're about to do because you don't want to put it down.
Yeah.
Have a glass of water.
Put on one of those
that's so big.
helmets with straws. A camel pack.
Oh, that's a great idea. Actually, I love that.
So I saw on your table you had your maintenance kit. So you should have supplies for the whip maker maintenance.
Yeah,
and it's the hat with the
the O'Keefe's working hands. Because anybody who's plaited nylon knows how dry your hands get.
Yes.
And that's actually another one. Like even just getting into the habit at the end of the day of got a pumice stone, so just grinding down where the calluses are and putting, O'Keefe's or Glycomed, something on your hands. It's so easy to cut up your fingers, especially if for anybody starting 275 work. That cord is so thin and it's so abrasive that by the time you start pulling with any tension, it's funny. A lot of whip makers will joke about that one ridge of callus along the back of the pinkies and on the top finger, right? You'll see people with those cuts and scars. It's something that I had for a while, and I would have to, put the Band-Aids on and then plait over the Band-Aids, and oh God, this hurts, but I want to finish. I'm a foot away from the end of the whip, right? So just those self-care, getting into the rhythm of that every day. Because now my hands don't get to the point where they crack anymore. It protects, and now you build up the calluses and you're good. So
the trick is to mix in leatherworking with the nylon so that you put it in line for your elbows. And then
just one leather, one nylon. One leather, one nylon.
Right.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Because the 275 is also slippery, so you have to grip a little harder as well.
Yeah, Spectra. Any of the ultra high molecular weight materials, those are slippery. Those are weird to plait with. So
I want to see some of your whips. I mean, you're talking about these, and we need to see it, like one of your Justin whips, and if you have any others that you own that are awesome. I have several here. It's always going to be exciting.
Why don't you tell it kind of like a story? You show the
first one
that you made.
Yes, let's see that.
So I still and it's funny. It's one of those, Robin said, I'll paraphrase, but do what I say, not as I do, right? The one piece of advice I always give people is just finish. You know what I mean? Like, even if you're not happy with it, just finish. You'll learn so much from it. And here I am with the still not finished, very first hybrid. There's no heel knot on it.
Wow, look at this.
And looking back on it now, it's crazy because it's come such a long way, and it's been so much just
waxed.
No, it's not. No, it's not waxed. I mean, one of the things that I actually really enjoy doing is the hitching, and this. I look back on it now, and
you're hitching so much better now.
It's
yeah.
The taper twist. It was actually John Canton who showed. He was very nice. He sent a video over of a method that he uses just for putting the strands inside to make it cleaner, running them through. And I think that's something that I really love about the community is that everybody, or at least most people, are very willing to share these little tips and tricks. And without that, I don't think my work would be nearly where it is now. There's some things that I've come up with and I've shared them around, but a lot of the pieces that I really love about my whips are inspired from other people's innovation. And then you talk and you share and you pick that up, and then, what if I do it, this way this time? And we grow as a community. And I really love that. I really love seeing people share information and grow for the sake of growing the whole craft, as opposed to just, here's all my secrets of how I do stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's funny, even looking at this now, One of the things that bothered me, I started with hybrids. I pretty much just made hybrids for the first few months. I really, really love the design. The paint. This one bugged me a lot. I remember, I think it was Dakota Winrich. She had a video on her YouTube talking about touching up the paint, because painting plastic is notoriously difficult. And, you know, everybody kind of came to accept that the paint's going to wear off, right? Here's ways to touch it up. And that, you know, that didn't fly with me. So I ended up, you know, spending a lot of time thinking about it, coming up with all sorts of different ideas. And then we were driving one day, and I remember we were talking about, you know, cars that have all these plastic parts now, and this, that, and the other. And I was like, hold on a second. Cars are beautifully painted all the time, so many colors, and it's plastic. So the paint I use now, I go to a local auto shop and I give them the code from the car manufacturer of the color I like, and it's auto paint because it's designed to go on plastic. And then it's sealed with a clear, like a hardener, a clear coat, which a 2K.
So it's indestructible.
So it's in. Well, Justin's got a video of it somewhere. He did a test for me where he threw a pair of handles off his roof. He drove them over with his car. He gave them to his dogs. And the one thing I will say is, no matter how good the paint is, it's still plastic. And if it chips, that paint stays on that chip super nice, but it is no longer on your handle.
That's what the interesting part was. Yeah. Is it survived everything he threw at it except for getting run over by the car.
That was the end of it.
It was because the plastic
chipped,
cracked a little bit.
Yeah,
not because it came off by itself.
Actually, in the end, I should find that video because I think we were gonna post it, and then I don't know why we didn't. But he took a pair of scissor blades to the paint, and it just, there's no scratches, no, right? So that's the original. That's the very first.
Okay.
The second one, I think, was that black.
Let me go back full screen. Let's see.
Yeah.
Stock whip.
Oh, possibly. Yeah. Yeah. Hold on.
Oh, yes. This was when he got really excited to try 275 for his second one ever.
Second one ever. I wanted to try a different style of whip, different cord. I hated myself
deep in there. Wow.
So there's
wow. That's beautiful.
So that was the first attempt at a 275 cord stock whip.
You tried a lot of new things here.
Yeah,
you tried the two-tone.
The two-tone heel knot was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, a different start. 275 at all.
Square start on your second whip is extremely impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Double direction hitching there. I see. That's
I was trying to get that X in the hitching, and it looks really nice with 275. I found out that it does not look nearly as nice in 550. So that was fun. But this was a really fun project, and I tried a little bit of design work in the thong just to have something a little different. But yeah, that's how my brain's always been. I made one, didn't quite finish it, and went, what's the next easiest thing I can do?
And you didn't do that. You did something super hard.
I didn't even come close to it. So that was number 2. And I actually I have a running log of every whip I've ever made. I have a registry that I keep. So I think it's really cool to see. So the number of the whip and the number that it is within its category. So, whip 100 and whatever, and it's bullwhip 56. I think it's really cool. And then I don't think I have it to show here, unfortunately. I have that analytical brain kicked in. And I remember it was Justin introduced me to Desmond, so another Canadian whip maker in Alberta. And I asked him, I think the question that a lot of people have asked, which is, how do I know when to drop strands? Yeah, when do I know when to drop? And the answer I got was by feel. When it feels like it's the right time to drop, you drop. If it feels a little bunchy, then drop. And if it feels a little loose, then you should have dropped sooner. And the analytical voice in my head went, what on earth do I do with that? I couldn't wrap my head around the feel of it. And so I designed, it's in Google Sheets right now, so it's a little clunky. I'm trying to make a version that, like Faceplat, something that people can just use without it requiring, being inside my head to understand how it works. But I have a builder that I put together. So I have a canvas where I can design and lay out each strand of the whip. I can put if it's plaited or if it's a gutted strand. And it graphs everything for me. So I can actually see the curve of the whip, and it makes it's a lot of fun. And it makes fine-tuning really neat because you can really just go down and see exactly where things are. But I keep a tab of that for every whip since I built it. So it's kind of like that running notes. I can actually go back and look at previous designs and go, okay, when I was single dropping, how did it feel? What does it look like? When I do double drops, how does it feel? What does it look like? And for, anybody who's made whips, there's these multiple layers. There's your core, if you have bellies. And I think what's really hard until you lay it out is seeing how all that interacts with each other.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can,
Right.
this is the right place to drop in the overlay, but that's also where I dropped in the belly, and that's also where I cut out strands in the core. Right? And you don't always see that when you're, 2-3 layers up. So being able to put it all out and go, oh, if I just shift this a couple inches, I'm not dropping at the same time as, where I lost this material. So, that was a really cool development. And again, I'm hoping to make a more public facing version of that.
I'd love for you to do that. You showed me briefly a little bit of that at WhipCon, and it's
Yeah.
extremely impressive. How many whips have you made so far?
The one that I finished yesterday, I believe, was 186.
Wow.
So yeah, that was an 8-foot bullwhip. I think that's where I pulled the number 56 from earlier. I think it's the 56th bullwhip.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so 180 something there.
That's impressive.
It was fun, and it's cool to see which numbers have ended up where. I think Justin has whips 6 and 7. It was the first pair that I made, and that was just so that he could trade and try stuff. And
those are which ones?
The blue and green,
Right.
The neon blue and green. So this is actually the hybrid that I won third with at last year's WhipCon. Oh, I gotta back up.
Oh wow, that's nice.
So design work in the thong again. The hitching has come a long way. And it was really cool.
I see some interesting transition strength there as well for a hybrid. That's much stiffer than I normally see.
I think a lot of people treat hybrids very much like a stock whip, but without the hinge.
Yeah.
Which is a very valid way of doing it. Obviously, with Justin as the kind of go-to person that I had to learn from and to get feedback from, Justin does a lot of those contact moves, so a lot of rolls, a lot of tosses. And what he found is that when you have that stiffer transition, just right up in here, when you roll the whip around, it allows it to actually spring and come back to your hand instead of just kind of collapsing. You can still do rolls with the stock whips, but this was to really fine tune and hone in on really his approach, because that's most of what I had to go off of. Since then, I have adapted. Like I said, the goal is not to have just one design; it's to be able to tailor to different needs. So when I made the pair of hybrids for Adam, actually the one set that we did as a collaborations back there with the triaxle weave, that was made without a belly, without any binding, and a loose strand core, because I know that's what his preference is. So still a hybrid, still the same look and feel, but different. And you can see kind of in the background where they just come right off the handle without that spring. So this was really fun. And
is this have binding, or is it just all through a lot of tension?
So it is. So it actually has a plaited belly. So the plaited belly goes for the first 11 inches, and then that's bound with kind of a tapered rigidity. So there's a 15-inch binding that kind of goes past the end of the belly to just smooth out where it transitions. There's another 6 inches, and then there's a 3-inch. So there's actually the most binding to just give it the spring right off the bat. The next 6 inches kind of helps it form that loop. And then the last few inches is just to taper that off so that it's not a sudden, all right, we're bound and belly, and now we have nothing. But then right from there, the plaiting loosens off quite a bit so that it feels more like a stock whip in how it ends. So the tension is really, really tight at the top, and then really quickly tapers off, so that from a this is the stuff I love, is the physics of all this. It's the formation of the loop. So that binding, you can see, goes to where the weight wants to spring outwards. As soon as you form that loop, you're just carrying the tension down now. So now it's just, how do I move more fluidly from there? So it's a lot of that different. Oh, sorry, I have the handle right in your face.
It's like a microphone.
Yeah. And then what I really loved about this one, so I know something that a lot of whip makers hate doing is knots. It's kind of I've heard it's the bane of a lot of people. I fell in love with them right from day one. I actually found them really fascinating. This whole handle is just one big knot. So yeah, it's a 4-bite. I'm trying to remember from when I made it. It's a 4-bite 41 part base knot.
It lands. Okay.
And then it's all it. So there's no, you can see where the knot and the handle are all one piece.
Wow.
And then
how fun.
It closes up at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you added in the strands around the the knob there in order to give
Yeah.
you some
So
extra.
it's one navy strand, one gold strand, and then because of the swell where the heel nut is, there's a third red strand that just fills in those gaps.
Oh, that is really
That
beautiful.
that was a really
Well
fun
done. Well
project.
done.
It took a couple attempts and a lot of swearing to get to go from the original concept and then to actually get it out.
If I had a dollar for every time he went, oh, this isn't working, I messed it up, oh my god, maybe I shouldn't do this, and he says that like 3 times until he finally gets it right, and he's just like, oh,
I'm so glad I stuck with it. And that's that. There's no. It's frustrating. Like I think when we talked earlier about fail, try harder, fail again. It sounds so easy, but it is hard. And I think that's something to always acknowledge, that when you're feeling that that defeated feeling of like, oh God, maybe I should just give up on this. That's normal to feel. Like it'll always be there. It's just having a little bit of faith in yourself that no, you know what, I can get this, and to be willing to stand back up.
And I think it's really motivating because it's hard to motivate yourself, especially when you have ADHD. And I think it's really helpful in terms of motivating yourself if you, instead of thinking of how easy it would be to just give up and be like, oh, screw it, or flip it in your mind and think how proud of yourself you would be if you stuck with it.
Yeah, when you get it. And it's a good feeling. Yeah. So this last hybrids that I'll show, but like this is my personal practice set now.
Ah, beautiful. Okay.
This is fun. And then some different knots, some chain link work.
There's that sort of in the middle there. Yeah.
Yep. And then because everybody really loved when I posted that picture.
Yeah.
The metal
conchos. There we go.
Yeah, I love it.
This.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
like an X there.
Yeah, and trying to incorporate some of those stylistic elements into them.
And it's hard to see, but in terms of the paint, that one is like a metallic blue.
Oh yeah, car paint gives you so much option because they have all the different flecks and pearls and what are they, shimmers, and it's almost so much choice that you don't know what to do. Like you go into the shop and they're like, all right, well, what color do you want? And you're like, that's a fantastic question I should have thought of before I came in here.
Have you looked at dye sublimation paint?
I've looked at it. I haven't started it yet. I've heard of some of like the dyeing plastics, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen that. I've heard of some people trying to do like the epoxy coats or like resin coats on them.
Yeah.
Which obviously where it comes over the coupler is hard to get that adherence without peeling. Some people will just bypass the pipe altogether. I've seen some beautiful hybrids with the carbon fiber handles.
Some of those are really nice.
Geisel whips, Oliver over in Germany. I know he's done them with wood, and that's gorgeous. I think Justin has a pair of the hybrids with the wood handles.
Actually.
Oh, do you have a set there?
Well, it's right here. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's turned.
Yeah, like gorgeous.
Love that.
And this is what I love about this craft is there's so many different things to do, and you're only limited by your imagination and your creativity.
And I got a little knot in the middle.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, lots of options.
Oh yeah. And so that was last year's competition. Then my practice one. This is this year's competition entry. So that's the stock that I entered. Oh, let me try.
So let me go full screen for you again, and I want you to show that open weave middle.
The mock
is so cool.
Yeah. So there's so it's actually 2 base knots, and then the white is all one knot woven in between them. So really want to just give that open lattice feel. And this is only because I've always really liked the look of ferrules whenever they do the ferrules on the whip handles.
Right.
And I've just been having a really hard time finding them lately. And so in my mind, I went, if I'm having a hard time finding them, I love that look. What can I do that looks like that? And something that, I've really been pushing myself on is learning all these different knots and different techniques. And I thought, how cool would it be if I could make a ferrule that was a knot? And so we do this on the JB signature as well. which is, I think it looks fantastic. Did it here. The heel knot actually comes from Johnny Ogren's book. So that was, again,
Oh,
kind of
yeah, I see that.
trying to keep the thematic, the open weave kind of looks. And then that repeats down in the thong as well.
Oh, yeah, I love that consistency.
Yeah, and
I don't see this on your Instagram, so people that are listening to audio only, you need
Oh,
to post this up there so they can see it.
Yeah.
Have I not posted this yet?
I think.
I'll
I don't
have
think
to
it's up
now,
yet.
yeah.
I know we were trying to be cautious not to post it too
beforehand,
soon
and now
competition.
obviously I've forgotten after the fact. But what's really cool here, and again, it's where the cameras are first on us. There we are. And again, it's kind of that, like, you're just limited by your creativity. This is a knot interweave. And so because I spent so much time learning the knots and playing with them, I saw this concept on a pair of stock whips that Torrance Fisher made.
In the thong.
In the thong, yeah. And I thought it was so cool, and I wanted to replicate something like that. So the plaiting, it's regular whipmaker's plait herringbone. And then when you get to this section here over the swing belly, and I wanted to put it right on the swell so that it gave it that little bit of, extra weight and that appearance. I switched over to double diamonds. So just plaiting 2 strands at a time, just doing diamonds. And when you do that, you're left with kind of the same shape that you get when you tie a base knot. You're left with just those crossing over and the holes in between.
Right.
So the white cord is just interwoven the exact same way that you would interweave a knot, or it's the same way as, when you look at the interweave on the knot handle here. It's that same kind of patterning effect in there. And,
it's just stunning.
Yeah, part of it was wanting to do the knots, and part of it was, again, advice that I got from Adam last year, because one of the things that he didn't like about the whip that I made is that it was too busy. So his feedback was, there's a lot going on in it. Your design elements don't stand out because there's so many of them. Mm-hmm. So one of the goals with this whip was to really tone down on how much there was, but highlight what's there. Mm-hmm. So, deciding not to add any design work in the top, deciding to keep the thong primarily blue. As soon as you switch into design work, you end up with that quartered effect. So wherever you're not having the design, you get, the quarter blue, quarter white, quarter blue.
Yeah.
And I thought that would just take away from the elegance of having it be primarily blue with that white accent work. And so this was kind of that happy medium. I still have design in the thong, but it's not, sacrificing the rest of my thong to being, white, blue, all the way down.
Yeah, last year we learned the importance of balancing design elements with negative space.
Yeah. And that was a huge creativity moment for me to be like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? Adam's fantastic for challenging you to go look at different things. Some of the conversations we've been having recently are, go study different whips, go study different makers, and pick out the pieces that you like. And that's going to help you develop your style, because you'll take, I really like how they do this. I really like how they break up this.
Absolutely.
You can learn from it. So something I'm doing now that, I didn't do in the past is study other makers' work more. So I always like.
Do you own many other makers' work that you do study? Do you own many other makers' work?
I try to. So I've been very fortunate to do some trades. Like you said, whip makers, we're not doing it for the money. So we try and figure out where we can. But I've got a pair of Peter Thorndike stock whips that I've studied. And that's, Peter Thorndike, Chris Barr, those are definitely, some of my idols when it comes to the type of design work that I really want to do. One of the reasons I did 275 is to be able to do finer design work. So I'm really excited with the leather stuff starting to be able to work with finer strands and to be able to do, kind of like jumping to 275 on my second whip. The little voice in my head is going, 72 plait seems pretty cool. So I'm trying to stop myself from jumping straight to that. But that's something that, leather's very exciting, is that you get to try different stuff. And I'll grab them just because it's pretty cool. I do like it a lot. So this pair was originally made for Adam, and then he added the knots, and he decided to get an all-white pair instead.
You just take it out of the hook.
That's okay. That triaxle weave pattern.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
And I saw that originally in Chris Barr's work, and the thing that caught me was that I couldn't figure out how he did it. And that's what made me want to do it. So as soon as I saw it, and I couldn't wrap my head around, how did you plait 3 colors like that? How did you achieve this? And we started to rabbit hole, and then spoke to Chris, and got some really good advice. But his advice is never, oh, here's exactly how it's done. It's, have you tried this yet? And I'd go and I'd try it, and I'd send him a picture, and he's like, close, but have you thought about that? And that back and forth process, the moment figuring this out was one of the coolest moments of, oh man, I get it now. And that's what you're saying. You stick through that multiple failures, and the pride at the end is worth it. So yeah, that was a really cool pair at the track. So Chris Barr, Peter Thorndike, Blake Gorey. I actually got really lucky. I got a Blake Gorey bullwhip, which again, being able to analyze that snakehead, so cool, so unique. And even if it's not something that I think
right
it's
up there.
Yeah, I think it's behind us as well. Even if you don't use it yourself, looking at how they did it, it gets your brain churning on the art of the possible, which is really cool. So I've been very fortunate. I've got a pair of Whipple-Ace whips from Simon Martin now. So being able to study the different materials. Some whips from Nick Schrader, Richard Cottrell, Alyssum, Kat Fimple. So there's a lot of work to reference. Torrance Fisher, and I end up spending more and more time just looking at them and just trying to think, and not just at the designs. I think it's also really cool to try and think about what their process was, or why this tension. Why ending the whip in a 4-point instead of a taper twist? Why any of these things? Because just because your style doesn't mean that you'll do that. Understanding why their style has led them to there can teach you just as much.
If I may add something,
Yeah.
because you made me think of something you said earlier about how when you were designing your earlier whips, because Justin was sort of your main source of feedback, it's interesting to think about not just you, but whip makers as a whole. You look at their style and think of what they were influenced by.
Yeah.
And think of how that applies to what they end up producing. I just think it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Because if you think about any type of artist, depending on what they derive the most inspiration from, is going to obviously influence the direction they take it. So you've taken inspiration from a lot of different sources that has influenced what you've come up with, your own unique creation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's super important. I actually love when Adam posts some of his latest creations. He usually goes through a whole line of references that this piece was taken from this guy and this piece was taken from that guy. And I mean, just like you were talking about with your one from this year, how I think that process is just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. I think it's nice for us to grow off each other. You know what I mean? I think, and it's a balance point. I think there's always that fear of like, oh, am I going to be copying somebody else? You know what I mean? Oh, am I going to be taking someone's idea? And I think there's a very small handful of whip makers that think that way. But I think for the most part, everybody I've met, it's that, imitation is the highest form of flattery, right? Now, obviously not, replicating exactly. But it's cool to see things that you've done end up somewhere else. It's a very fulfilling feeling of being able to add to the craft, because whip making has been around forever. Like, how far back into history you go, it's one of the oldest implements. So being able to add something to that generations of other people before you, that's a really cool feeling. And I hope that the greatest feeling I can have as a whip maker is down the road somebody using something that I came up with in their work and then pushing it a step further. Like that would be so cool thing to see.
Yeah, it's like having whip cracking tricks that you get to name because you came up with it. Imagine you come up with a whip making technique that you just discovered by accident, or that you tried one day because you just thought, why not? If it works, it works. If it doesn't, oh well. And then it ended up working better than you imagined. And you're like, oh, I have to tell everybody about this.
It's innovation, right? It really is. I mean,
like on mine, when I add the 2-point twist and then feed the tips together, Torrance taught me how to do that. And in all my descriptions, I call it the Fisher hitch.
Yeah.
And if you make your own hitch, for instance, that would be the right way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Like the
The
hitch.
right way. I see what you did there.
I didn't catch that at all. No, I'm glad you did.
This is why she's the social media person.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like even the English I use now it was from Ray Egerton. I got that idea from him, and I've loved it. I've moved a lot of my whips over to that concept just because it gives it a few more options. It looks really clean. It's really fun, and it's evolution, right? There was somebody at some point that went, what if we did the 2-strand twist? What if we didn't end in a 4-point fall hitch? What if we tried something else?
Right.
And so people started doing the twist. And then I don't know if it was John who did it first, or if John was just the one to make the video. But when John Canton sent that video of running the strands through each other and then doing the twist, wow, that was so much cleaner. It looked so much nicer now. So, pick that up. I went from just twisting 4 strands together to running them through and twisting the 2. And then Ray went, look at this English eye that I put on the end of a two-strand twist. And it was like, oh man. So like there's so many different pieces that you can build up, and the art grows as people give you these different inspirations and ideas. And
what's really cool too is discovering that what can happen when you change this small piece or that small piece, not only from an aesthetic point of view, but also in a function way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to. I think that's another benefit to owning and going to WhipCon, but owning a bunch of other whip makers is you're able to crack yours and then go out and crack a couple different ones. I have a Joe Strain, a bunch of different ones here, but Joe Strain is usually my go-to for how I want it to feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whip. And it's going to feel different between nylon and leather, but to go out and just crack 3 or 4 in a row and just process that as a whip maker is really impressive. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like there's any other, like as we're wrapping up here toward the end of the interview, like other resources that people could go to? Do you have a YouTube? Do you have plans for a YouTube or those sort of things, or education? Are you going to write a book like Johnny did? Or can you recommend some?
Yeah. So on the horizon, I'll say this just because the idea wheel is always going. I'd love to have a YouTube. I know Nick and I have been chatting for a while about him showing me just some filming techniques, because his videos are incredible.
Oh, top of the line. Yeah.
There are a lot of things that I want to be able to share more. And right now it's been a lot of see a question in Whipmaker's Hook, try and write out an answer. And it's funny. I guess I've developed this reputation for writing paragraph long answers. And it was Justin who first said, instead of writing out, these 10-minute answers every time, just make a video, just show people how to do it. But it's that imposter syndrome, that fear of the unknown. I've never made a video before. So it's on the horizon. It's something that I am working towards. In the meantime, you mentioned books and Johnny's book. The second one is coming out, and I would probably recommend that to anyone who is looking to learn. Even though it is a book on leather whips, if you're a nylon whip maker, get a copy of Johnny's book.
The first edition, first one also. I don't know if he's going to do a reprint, but I'll have to have Johnny on again to give us details.
I believe the second book is replacing the first, so it'll have everything from the first book plus.
It's a second edition.
Second edition.
Yeah.
Second edition. Okay. So hopefully so, but even if you're getting started today, don't wait. I would say.
Oh yeah. I'm not sure if he's sold out, but yeah, if you can get a copy of Johnny's book, absolutely 100%. It's amazing. Join the communities and don't be afraid to post your work, is what I'd say in terms of a resource. Those around you that have been there and tried it are an incredible resource if you're not afraid to ask.
Constructive feedback.
Yeah. And I think
and most people
it's not just the courage to ask for the constructive feedback. Something that I've noticed, and I definitely wish that people would do it more, and I try and do it, is to be willing to give feedback. I think a lot of people ask for feedback, and what they get is, oh, that looks really good. You're doing a really good job. Because none of us want to, tell somebody that, oh, this could be better or this and this.
Right.
But that feedback is so important, and it's so crucial. And it's good to compliment when you see things that are good, but you help people grow by showing them what could be improved. And you don't have to be mean about it. I mean, I think there's very constructive ways to do it. But I think, for those who've been there before, don't be afraid to share your thoughts. And for those that are starting that journey, ask. Yeah, take the time to think it through, like we said earlier, but don't be afraid to post your work and be told that, hey, this could be better. That's how you grow. So
Absolutely. I love that. And I can't think of a better way to end this interview as well. Like
absolutely.
that is absolutely to the point, is ask for help. And this is a community. And honestly, that's why I'm doing this podcast too, is to help us get together and be actual friends and
It's
get to know
like
you.
some of the best friends that I have right now are from the Whip community. And there's people that I only see, once a year at WhipCon, but there's always the opportunity. We can hop on calls. I mean, like you said,
Yeah.
I honestly forgot that we were recording for parts of this because we were just
See?
having a great time chatting. So
Right.
like, thank you so much for facilitating this and for helping bring the community together, because
That's
it
my
is
goal.
very fractured and it is all over the world. And remembering that we're very blessed now to have the ability to talk this way from different countries
Yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting us on, Christian.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. And a quick correction to earlier, I noticed on your Instagram, there is a picture of your winning whip, but
Oh,
it's
it
one
is
of
up
those with
there.
multiple
Okay.
pictures. So you got to click to the right and see that.
There we
Okay,
are.
okay.
It's you holding your award. So guys, go click on that. It's truly amazing. Robin, Chris, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I look forward to chatting with you in the future many more times, hopefully. And
Absolutely.
give me some constructive feedback on my whips, because I certainly need a lot of help as well. But
Only if you promise to give me some on mine.
you got it, man.
All right, there we are.
All right.
Christian, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm gonna start my music here. Absolutely. And hopefully everyone can be better at whip cracking. Have a good night.
Cheers. Have a great night.
Christian.
All right. I'd just like to thank Chris and Robin once again for being on the show and for doing their part and bringing this community together. Thank you for coming out to WhipCon, for being on the podcast, and for doing so much to make such amazing, you're being such amazing craftsmen in general. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening to the podcast as well and watching the podcast. If you would like to help out some little bit to keep the podcast on the air, I could use your help. If you go to whipchatpodcast.com, that's whipchatpodcast.com/donate. And I have a button, and I could, anything you can do could be a big help. So I would appreciate it. And I will keep doing this because it's my passion to help bring the community together, but I could use your help as well. whipchatpodcast.com/donate. Thank you very much.